ask you that. How many days ago?
No.
Russell Village Council meeting is Monday, April 25th, 7 a.m. For those of you out there, please welcome. Everyone, please rise. Hand over your hearts and join our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll.
Burger.
Here.
Ken.
Here.
Kavanaugh. Here. Shaliki.
Here.
Porter.
Here. Here. We have minutes for the April 11th regular council meeting. Any changes or corrections to the minutes from the April 11th council meeting? Move to approve by Porter, seconded by Kavanaugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are passed. It is our pleasure, and it really is a pleasure to have Dennis Harmon here tonight as one of our visitors. Chief, I'll turn the floor over to you to talk about Dennis, but we're eventually going to appoint Dennis as a part-time police officer in a few minutes. Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dennis Harmon comes to us from the RTA Police. He's a certified canine handler, and he's coming on board with us part-time, so I'm seeking council's appointment of Dennis Harmon to the position of part-time patrolman. Come on.
On behalf of HR committee and safety, the interview, we second that motion and say, we recommend, make that recommendation to council that they approve his hiring.
Been moved, we have a second.
Second, Carly second.
Discussion?
Mayor, you're appointing and council will then confirm?
Yes. I'm appointing council to confirm. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right. Dennis, stand there. Raise your right hand. I, Dennis Harmon, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and will faithfully,
and faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of
discharge the duties of
the office of part-time patrolman
the office of part-time patrolman
in the village of South Russell
in the village of South Russell,
in Johnson County, Ohio.
in Johnson County, Ohio.
Congratulations. So here, let me introduce you to everybody.
Candy, we have.
That's a good section.
Yeah,
We can take it.
do that.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Glad to have you. I'm sure you did.
All right, thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
They find it, that's what I use.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
I figured you had
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, sir.
We have no visitors who have signed up to speak tonight. Any visitors in the audience who would like to speak? We're now off to the mayor's report. First thing on the mayor's report is the Green Valley Fire Department donation. And to refresh everybody's memory, Green Valley Fire Department wants to raise $1.6 million. They have raised $660,000 so far. They have an additional $140,000 pledge. They will receive $400,000 from Cuyahoga County, was pledged once all 6 communities signed the non-binding resolution. We have been asked to contribute the 6 communities $300,000 each. South Russell has been asked to contribute almost $70,000. They would like this money by the end of June. So I met with the people. I think I got my mind clarified. Are there any questions or concerns about this donation or the whole process?
I think on behalf of the Financial Committee, I'd like to say that, the Financial Committee's position is still that the Finance Committee would like to meet with the Spring Valley Fire Department. The meeting that the mayor had was scheduled in a vacuum, for lack of a better word. Neither member of the Finance Committee was available on the date that the mayor selected to meet with the Spring Valley Fire Department. There remain a lot of questions about the details of the agreement, and we would like to have representatives of the Spring Valley Fire Department approach council so that all council members might have the opportunity to question the Spring Valley Fire Department.
So my last comment or bullet point, would you want the representatives here at our May the 9th next council meeting?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. What sort of questions would you have? So maybe we can prime them so that they're ready.
I don't think we need to prime them, Mayor. I think that's not proper. I think they ought to be able to be knowledgeable enough about their program so that any question that may come from council can be addressed while they're here.
Okay. I would like to get this process rolling. Mr. Berger, you will be here at the council meeting at the end of May.
I may be here by Zoom. I don't know. Depends on what the technology
It's a
across the
very long
world
Zoom.
is.
Okay. But anyhow, we'd like to get this rolling. We'll have them here on Monday, May the 9th. Anybody that wants to meet with them, go ahead. As a safety committee, if you want to meet with them on your own, go ahead. And that'll be it. All right, next. We have some information in front of you about a candidate to be a part-time zoning inspector. What's that? Number 2 to 3 items. You get 1, 2, 3.
Appreciation month.
Oh, yes, appreciation luncheons. Anybody have any suggestions? Anybody that should be recognized?
Yes, I do. I'd like to nominate, the owner of Team Rabbit and Sleepy Rooster. They've been just wonderful additions to our village.
What's the team, right?
The coffee place inside, Martin Park, one of the, all the other businesses are in there. It's addition.
Rooster's there, but then the team rabbits office.
I'd also like to nominate, Joe and Bob Royer for their work, community, and also, Judy Harvey.
Whenever we do things like this, so do we step on toes if we leave people out?
Well, that's a good question, Lou. And I allegedly, I thought the purpose of this meeting was to be an employee's recognition and appreciation event, but I just wanted to provide recognizing private citizens in this venue as well.
HR committee, put it on your agenda for the next meeting.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay. Item number 3, Art by the Falls. They'd like to possibly park cars at the East Washington Park area on the June 9th through the 12th. and put that on the safety committee meeting agenda. That's okay. Next, zoning inspector position. You have Dan D. Agostino's application in front of you. At the last meeting, you had his resume and his letter of interest. We'd like to see Dan get hired tonight at $40 an hour. He's worked about 5 hours a week on average, 30 weeks. We've already budgeted $7,000 for the position. Discussion.
Yes, as chair of the building department, I suggest we have a rigorous discussion about this. The individual is highly qualified. He lives within 2 minutes of the village. If Dave is on vacation or
Indisposed.
correct, this individual can take over without skipping a beat. But as chair, I'm seeking views from the council. I know it's $40 an hour. We went from $30 to $40, and it is true, this is what happens. At times we discuss this in council where we come up with a number, let's say, and then we're set with it. And then sometime during the year, we want to raise it, and then we can get into some difficulty with the budget. But just like a budget that you may have at home, the intention is good, but we know more often than not that we're going to go with budgets and we keep a reserve. But this individual is highly qualified, and we did ask him again. We, concerning the $40 an hour, and he's pretty solid on that. So I'd like to open the floor with some discussion about it.
Sure, I'd like to make some points. I am concerned about the $40 an hour ask. Reason being, recent ordinance we passed just in March, ordinance 2022-29, says the max rate for a zoning inspector is $29.55 an hour. $40 an hour is 35% higher, approximately, than that rate. If that rate is wrong, then we should probably revisit that. But as the mayor did some homework for us for the committee, nearby Russell and Baylor Township have a zoning inspector job for $33.11 an hour. So maybe our numbers are a little low. I don't know. We're a different size community. Regardless, I don't think that qualifies $40 an hour. At $40 an hour with a $7,000 budget, you're getting about 170 hours of inspection time. With at $29.55, you're getting 237 hours of inspection time. I think as a taxpayer, they'd rather have more inspection time with that $7,000. I know we're expecting 5 hours a week, but honestly, I can see that growing to be more than 5 hours a week. I'd like to have that cushion in there, so we're not restricted from the work that this candidate or another candidate can do. If we were to just move forward with this candidate or someone else, we'd have to adjust our pay scale ordinance. And so until that's done, I don't feel comfortable giving the green light for this.
I'd like to ask HR and the building committee, did we interview all candidates for this position?
We interviewed Dan. He was the only one that had zoning inspector.
And go.
He could do zoning.
I mean, it seems like we're bundling zoning and building again. As I understood it, the opening was for a part-time zoning inspector. I think we ought to hire to that job description. And, if during the course of events with Dave, he decides that he can't be there for some reason, there's a potential that we could investigate whether D'Agostino would be one of those individuals who would pick up some of those duties. But, it seems to me that, we should have at least looked at other qualified individuals in the hiring process. We do have a process. It seems like pulling this name out of the hat and just recommending that we hire him is abrogating that hiring process. Additionally, for the new council members, I'd like to invite your attention to building committee meeting minutes of 18 June 2019, when we again interviewed for part-time zoning inspector. One of the candidates at that time, not the strongest candidate, was Daniel D'Agostino. According to Hosevar, he just took a job at Streetsboro on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and wants to work 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Porter asked if this was practical, and Hocevar stated it would be better to have half-day people in the office. Hocevar added that D'Agostino was also still doing work with Richmond Heights, and told Hocevar that between the three municipalities, he could come to the village. Porter and Salas questioned how effective this would be, but added that he lives in Russell. Porter stated D'Agostino has interim qualifications of ESI, ICC, residential, building official, building inspector, but not commercial or plumber. Hocevar explained that with interim qualifications, there must be someone with the individual at the inspections. Porter asked how long it would take to get full certification. Hocevar stated that times vary and could be between 3 and 4 years. Porter asked or noted that D'Agostino was at the point of getting full qualifications, and Hocevar agreed. Although Porter did not like the idea of his limited availability given the certifications, he felt D'Agostino was worthy of an interview. Now, there were 4 qualified candidates at that time. For whatever reason, D'Agostino was not one of the 3 candidates that was invited to participate in interviews. And back on 8/12/19 at the council meeting, it was reported by the building committee that Porter, Hocevar, the mayor, and Schloss were present. Discussion included the mayor's suggestion to share a building zoning inspector with Twin Falls or Woodmere Village. Nothing was conclusively decided. And then at 10 a.m., an interview was conducted for the building zoning position. The committee concluded the applicant that was the final potential being brought forward was not suited for the job, and the committee would continue to search, meaning all the other candidates were also considered to be not qualified at that time, including D'Agostino. He advised, however, that it did not appear there was a suitable applicant, and the village was back to square one. So D'Agostino in 2019 is not a suitable applicant, but now we want to hire him at $40 an hour outside of the pay range for that particular position, him also being the only individual that was interviewed. And to me, at least, that raises a lot of questions.
Well, let's break it down into 2 questions. Number 1, is this individual qualified to do the job?
The zoning inspector.
Be a zoning inspector? Seems like the answer is yes. So now the question is, simply, do we want to break our ceiling from a salary perspective, or do we want to go back and say, there's, this has got to be negotiated somewhere in between?
Was it the opinion, let me ask the question before that, with the salary, was it the opinion of the HR committee that the other candidates were not qualified for the zoning position?
On the resumes, this man stood out. And I don't know if he has the Richmond Heights job, do you know that?
His resume indicates he stopped working there in 2019. So he's working at
It's only in Streetsboro, that was my understanding.
So on a resume, you stood out, but we decided not to interview anybody else.
Evidently so.
I think there's and while I understand your desire to decouple the concept of zoning and building qualifications, which he now has, according to the resume, the thought was that because he had these qualifications, because he had an experience level with Dave, that he would be a valuable backup, if you will, to that building inspector issue. And this has been raised before council many times. Building department has been beat over the head that they didn't have a backup today. That Dave was holding us hostage in terms of that building inspector position. Well, now here's an opportunity to break some of that grip and to say, well, there are other options. And there's an option with somebody who's already part of the village organization. So, I don't know which way you want to have it.
Well, one, I think, and I'll bring up Councilman Porter's observations in the past that, we probably need a succession plan to date. But, is this the right guy?
Okay.
If we were looking for that succession plan,
Let me suggest this, I apologize, go ahead, Dennis.
Dennis has the floor.
I think that if we were looking at a succession plan, is somebody at the stage of career that D'Agostino is, would he be the right choice for a successor? So that's my perspective in terms of looking strategically at the position and not just necessarily stopping.
Okay, well, in my response to that is, I don't view D'Agostino as a long-term solution to the problem as a succession plan, but as a viable bridge, should that become necessary. He's a interim solution to what will be a very difficult hire down the road, okay? And to have some kind of continuity plan in the event that we would not have Dave Kosovar available to us, I think is valuable to the village.
Well,
Rather than just turning around and saying, okay, call the county and make them come down and take care of the problem. Now we have an interim solution in the house.
Can I just add something, just so you know, we have 3, job descriptions for something similar. So we have a zoning inspector position, that's $20.39 an hour, $29.55. We have a combination building and zoning part-time, $22.83 to $33.11, which sounds like you might go all, at least into that job description. And then we have a part-time building inspector, which is $35 to $45. So if he's going to do zoning and cover for Dave, he would fall into building zoning, a combination, but that pay range still is going to have to amend that.
I have a question for the solicitor, if I may. If the mayor appoints this gentleman, and we make a motion in a second, before all that, do we have to modify that scale, that pay scale before we bring it in?
I think so. I mean, at what rate is he? He's appointing him as a higher compensation, still in the second council. So.
We'd still have to modify that first.
Well, unless you go with what you have.
Right.
Yes, otherwise.
I think there's a secondary issue to consider, and that is, what do you currently pay the zoning inspector? What's the current rate?
Sure.
No,
Because we don't have a zoning.
yes, we did.
Yeah, but
Dave Kosovar is the zoning inspector,
currently it's the zoning inspector.
and currently he gets paid $70 an hour to be the zoning inspector.
I thought it was for the building inspector.
Well, he does both jobs.
Well, okay.
Okay, but, so all
But
I'm
it's not just for
saying
the
is,
zoning inspector.
I'm not saying 40 is the right number, but I'm saying 40 is a lot lower than 70 to do that job. Or 75, whatever the number is. That's just something to consider.
Can I offer an explanation? I mean, Dennis is right, Ray and I did the interviews last time around. I can say that, be a zoning inspector, part-time, you need to be over the age of 18 and breathing. That's pretty much everyone in this room, I'm pretty sure, and everybody outside the walls and all of the rest. So you have an infinite number of potential candidates. I did want to ask, is he ESI certified? Not interim, but actually ESI certified.
Is that the electrical?
Yeah.
I believe so.
It says, he describes in his application, multi-certified in, something in ESI.
I mean, he was interim when we interviewed him, the minutes show. In the 2.5 years since then, if he got that ESI, or he's eligible to be ESI, I can tell council, and I think, Jerry, were you involved in this 3 years ago? When we went through how few ESIs there were,
Or is it on the
no, but,
Were we actually charging other communities for paid services?
we were. I remember that quite
Well, I
well.
do know that they're few and far.
And they're getting rarer and hence to these days. And in my view, bringing him in as, what was that third one, Danielle?
Building
Part-time?
/zoning, building zone, it's a combination part-time building zone inspector.
at both rates.
at 3311.
Well, you mentioned 3 positions, and one of them, the last one, was that part-time building inspector?
Oh, yeah, there's zoning, building and zoning together, or a part-time building inspector. And
Building and
then,
zoning is what rate, 33?
building zoning together was 2283 to 3311,
Yeah.
and part-time building inspectors 35 to 45.
I think we could probably move forward is, because it's part-time zoning, which is what we're interviewing for, and then / because of his qualifications, building inspector, is that what his name is?
Part-time, yeah.
Part-time zoning inspector / what's the rest of it?
Building / zoning inspector.
Okay. Because of those qualifications, I can pretty much guarantee council that that is a really good deal, because this individual has, by what he's put here, enough certifications to replace or fill in for Dave on a number of different things. Not everything, because Dave's gotten almost everything, which he took like 40 years to get. But this gentleman seems to have not just the zoning inspector part, but also the building inspector part. We have talked on council over the years about not having a bench, not having a way to fill in should they decide to take his talents to South Beach. To use a phrase earlier known in Cleveland as a electrical inspector or something of the sort. So to my mind, 3311 is the top of that, Daniel.
Yeah.
I would suggest we consider the mayor appointing him to the part-time zoning inspector / building inspector job at the top rate of $33.11, and then go from there. Because we haven't had an actual dedicated zoning inspector, part-time or otherwise, I don't know, in a really long time. Do you remember last time we actually had a separate person doing it? I think it was in work. Yeah, so that would have been years ago. But I understand Chris's point, $40 is beyond what we were talking about. But if this individual is willing to do the part-time thing here, recognizing he's also working at Streetsboro, he's got 2 part-time jobs. 5 hours a week is what we're talking about right now, right? And if he does have the certifications that are on his application, the full-time, all the way certifications, that's a good deal. Especially DSI.
So if he did lapse over into the building, he could still get the $33 an hour.
Yes, because it's the position of part-time zoning inspector / building inspector. Right, Daniel?
Yeah.
What's that?
Question, I'm just, sorry.
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
The other one seemed to be annotated as part-time on this pay scale. There's building and zoning inspector, max rate of 3311 does not say part-time, like semantics.
On the job description, that's under number, that's a part-time, if you did it under 3. That's building
Scroll up.
inspector for full-time.
That's full-time, right?
I seem to recall I wrote that, but maybe I didn't.
So if I may add,
Yeah, number
before we go through all this, would it make sense if, the chair of the building department and the mayor speak to this gentleman and, talk to him about the situation and see if $33 is satisfactory to him? Or do we go through all this and then have him tell us that he's not going to take the offer?
Well, I think it makes sense, Jerry, to save time, because if this is communicated to him that the village is considering this, mayor, not that we're going to do it, but to let the individual know the top rate is $33.11 for this particular position, but it's part-time zoning and building. When he came in, he interviewed for part-time zoning only, right? So this would be something he hadn't heard, and perhaps he would want to hear that and decide whether he wants to pursue it. Not that we're giving a potential employee a veto or anything like that. But this lets the individual know, here's the story, this is what we're looking for. We noticed your qualifications, and if they are accurate, he's got this certificate or whatever it is, we are quite interested.
Was that combined position discussed with them during the interview process?
We talked about it, I think maybe informally, I don't remember. All I was looking to do is to hire a zoning inspector for 5 hours a week, and if things work out, which I put in my measurement, then if you want to bring in one, maybe in June, bring in one also as a building inspector.
So then we go back to the fact that we're just hiring the zoning inspector? Because to your point, Mayor, you're saying if things work out, but now we've jumped to say, let's combine positions.
Well, because he has the capability of doing the building thing, that's a wide open.
Well, and let me ask the question to the building department, how many days do we have somebody when Dave's not there, do we have a meeting?
Good question. Let's go back to your latest question before this one here. I'll refresh the mayor's memory. I believe we did discuss combination bill.
Or the citizens,
I believe.
it came up.
Okay, so this came up.
Yes.
Was the pay scale of the combined position mentioned?
He was solid.
It was so on 40.
Yes.
Our pay scale says what it says,
Right.
not that it can't be amended, changed, but at this point, that's what we can do.
Okay. We have a motion.
I move that the mayor investigate further and communicate with the individual, D'Agostino, with regard to the combined part-time zoning inspector / building inspector position, which at present pays a top rate of $33.11, to determine whether or not the individual is interested in pursuing it. So moved.
And
Question before the
Wait
second.
for a second.
Okay.
you have a second.
And I'll say.
Okay, question. We're making a motion to further investigate. Do we really need a motion to further investigate? Or should we move to make an offer of employment for the combined positions at the current pay scale of 33.41 and see if he accepts it?
Question on that. We applied for the zoning inspector job. We're now saying the building and zoning inspector. Would we technically need to reapply for the building and zoning inspector as far as paperwork goes?
I would say no, because it was brought up in the interview. And I can tell you this much.
I personally don't recall.
We also went through trying to find a building inspector with qualifications even remotely close to Dave's, and we came up with nothing. We had people who had one thing, and that was it. They had been building inspectors, but they weren't certified in commercial plumbing or anything. So that was rather tedious.
So, Mark, based upon Dennis's question, would you be willing to amend your motion to make this an offer of employment at this rate?
I am so willing to amend. The jury is willing to second as amended.
And the rate you suggest?
$33.11.
So we have to modify the current rate.
No, it's the top end.
The top end of that position.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
More?
Danielle, James?
Councilman Bell asked a question, do you need to reapply? Just so you know, when we ran an ad for the building inspector, part-time building inspector, part-time zoning inspector. I would only, once we got for the building inspector, nobody was really qualified, somebody had some certifications. All the other ones I received were for zoning inspector. I never received Mr. D'Agostino's resume, that went through the mayor, so I don't know what they applied for.
Council didn't, although the mayor said that it was provided to council, that was never provided to council. And the last council had provided. So perhaps the committee has that.
I don't recall it, though. I recognize the name, so I probably got the one from 3 years ago.
With the interim qualifications.
Yes, with the interim qualifications.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. All right, we'll get on. Next thing, May the 12th, I met with Team Ohio, we're at the Independence, and it was a waste of time, talking about ARPA funds, it didn't matter to us, anybody wants to see the notes, they're there. The Ohio Township Association had an excellent webinar on fun and games on community days. This guy, I forget where he's from, do you remember? Were you on that for that?
No.
I got 2 pages of notes on things that can go right and can go wrong on like fall festival. So it's very interesting. I'll get into the park in a minute. Our ethics committee had their refresher on April 12th. It was basically the same thing that Ruth and Chris and I and Dennis saw at the Ohio Municipal League seminar. Spring Valley Dispatch, they are in spinning the wheels. They're trying to determine how to come up with the fees for dispatch services. They're to the point now where they're not progressing. They're probably going to have to hire a consultant to look at how to do this. We meet with Chagrin Soccer on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. This will be a special park committee meeting, so please get that Zoom, pardon me, not Zoom, but Sunshine. Street Commissioner and I met last week with the Family Life Center leaders. They're very willing to have us share the cost of cleaning out their detention pond. And I told them that basically some sort of legislation would come probably, in July when it's nice and dry, which is one of the things we'd like to see.
Any questions?
Yes,
You're willing to split it with us 50/50?
yes. Now, that's all been verbal. So when we get legislation, then we'll go to them, and I would imagine the person we've spoken to goes up a notch. So that's why I said maybe July.
Okay.
Solicitor, I know at the previous council meeting, we asked the question about the legality of even expending village funds on private property which is not within the confines of the village. Did you find a legal reason on that?
I did today, so the short answer is yes, we can, as long as we go through like the abatement process of a public nuisance. So it's not as simple as a legislation, so we probably need to talk about that.
Okay.
And talk about how we go about doing this.
An abatement process as a nuisance.
Because we actually have a codified ordinance that says that if you cause any kind of other waste in a location that causes pollution to any waters in the village, and believe it or not, waters in the village are defined as lakes, ponds, that sort of thing, inside or outside the jurisdiction of the village. The codified ordinances can be applied. So, and we declared it a public nuisance. It's 660.19 of the codified ordinances. So I can send you guys all of this. I literally just found this today. So.
Would we also need to negotiate an easement as well?
I don't know, not for the abatement process, no.
So we should get this on the public utilities next agenda, public utilities committee meeting.
Which part?
The
Just the law section, I was gonna send all of
Yeah,
it.
I'd say so. We all get started there. It's what we want
Right,
to do.
so again, splitting up the costs, and sure, you can expend funds, if you're going to abate it, you can also charge the costs of this to the property owner. And you actually can go on the tax duplicate.
And go witness or.
If you go on the tax duplicate, you charge their property. I guess, so I have a couple of questions. Another thing is that Java Water District, Conservation District, they mentioned that I think the retention pond may have been built prior to the requirements of, like, they don't have a long-term maintenance, I guess, plan that's documented with soil and water, but they are inspected, I think, annually, and they have cleaned out their pond, I think, the last time, it was even 15 or 17 because of soil and water's recommendations, and they will annually inspect.
The other question I have, since you brought up the soil and water district, is doesn't the EPA also have some jurisdiction over swales as well?
I did not look at the EPA. The EPA, I mean, you can go into that section of the Ohio Revised Code, which is 6111, and that talks about some of that, but I don't know that I mean, you could get the Attorney General involved, absolutely, but I don't know if that would be the way necessarily.
Okay.
So I mean, the abatement can be an injunction, it can be, a notation that says, hey, you guys gotta fix your pond, because it's causing the silt to come into all these other lakes and,
So we'll start with public utilities committee, work our way up.
Could also potentially be an easement between Bainbridge and us as well.
I don't know. That's what-
Okay, moving on, she did offer to, why don't we annex the Family Life Center property, and I said no. Last week, we hosted the Manor Gardens HOA and the Whitetail Master HOA. They are co-owners of the pond, which is just west of our 319 grant. Some of them were under the assumption that pond was being maintained by Aqueduct, but it is not. And frankly, they did not know why. It was, the idea was to talk about how to get their pond up to speed and to get them to the table with each other. They're not in the most friendliest situation with each other. That did occur, but it quickly turned into a rehash of how to do the 319 grant. So basically, what they've been told, they want all the information about the 319 grant. They can go to the CT website and talk to Eric on Friday. It's posted. Anybody who wants to know calculations, how they decided to do what they did, that'll be there. Next, I have some suggestions. Inventory procedure, looking at how we do things. I think that goes to the property committee also. And number 14, I asked the HR committee, I think we need to look at what we're doing. We may have all the documentation we need as far as workshops, meetings, and, I thought, well, Dennis, Ruth, Chris, and I were gone on a Saturday. I'm looking at the Mayor's Convention in Columbus. Some people are taking courses. I think we need to just tighten that up and take a good look at it.
Is that for audit purposes or what?
No, I'm just thinking maybe we should know, maybe at the HR committee, like Officer Jones went to firearms training. We just have a list so we can know, or so-and-so went to this training or that training. It'd just be nice to know what's going on. Last thing, your packet contained a flyer from University Hospitals. They wanted us to help contribute to purchase a ambulance. And on that note, are there any questions of the mayor? Okay, last comment, then two things also. Somehow in the confusion of a person stepping off the park committee for a year and then coming back on for the final year, we forgot to appoint Greg Student as a member of the park committee. So I'd like to have a motion to appoint Greg Student to a 4-year term as a member of the park committee.
I'll move that.
Moved. We have a second. Second, discussion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And lastly, Mr. Berger and I are meeting with the Parkland Dam owners. They have just found that there are now 13 owners instead of 11. So we're having breakfast on Wednesday morning rather with that.
Now that packet, this is what
Yes,
you're referring to, because it confused me. Does Brian need to speak to it? Because it was a lot of legalese, and I just break it down for me.
Well done, by Linda.
I did, actually, the bond council. So, no, but it was just a petition that they had actually provided to us almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But more in the form of a statutory procedure, just asking for the assessment to do the public improvement. But there is a top of the actual dam is actually located on 2 parcels that really don't abut lake. That sounds crazy. Or own the lake, how about that? So all the other 11 own part of the lake, and then the other 2 at the top of the dam sit, so do not. So they were actually excluded from the realization included in this position because the improvement the chances of the improvement on the top part of the dam is pretty likely, and they will benefit.
So they'll be paying along with the other one?
They can. Remember, this is voluntary.
If they agree to it.
Correct.
Yeah, this is going to be a surprise to those 2 homeowners.
But one of them is where the bad erosion is taking place.
I'm not sure. I think
That's
so.
correct.
I'm not sure.
Yes, and the other side has some erosion, but not a lot. The other one's definitely got the worst of it.
I don't know. I think that probably is accurate.
So 13 instead of 11.
Correct.
Okay, and this,
Whose responsibility is to collect the petition, the signatures, is it the village or the homeowners? Homeowners.
Homeowners do it individually, and supposedly they're gonna drop it off at Village Hall with a check for $2 million.
I think it's 3,000. Or did we reduce the price? I didn't know. Oh,
Well, what does it say?
3,000.
but that's what.
For 11, and now it's 13.
We need to talk, personnel to start with the two people who've been pushing this, talk to them about how we go about notifying everybody, including the two new people. And Danielle suggested, a nice cover letter, and move on from there.
I live in a new homeowner as well.
Somebody recently moved in.
Yeah, they did set aside,
There's a $40,000 escrow account set up specifically for the dam project. That transfer, you're aware of that, so, and the new owner is on board, obviously, because the old owner is willing to pay for it. So,
and this is probably, we set a record today for over an hour mayor's report. Fiscal officer, you're up.
I distributed the report, so I have also if there are any questions.
If I may, bring our attention back to your April 11th fiscal report, second bullet, if I may read it. Reviewing the minutes of the March 28th council meeting, Council Cadden asked the fiscal officer who handled the park benches purchases and donations in the past. I would like to clarify, there's no official policy in place. That's why a formal policy and procedure is being requested. Up to this point, the mayor has handled the benches and the fiscal officer took in and reported the money. Having a formal policy in place for consistency and transparency moving forward, even after officials change. Having policies signed and written for the process or job is always preferred over designing a policy and procedure for a person and place at time. I will not speak for Kavanaugh, but I think we agree on that. And I suggest that we all meet and iron this out. So the question is, when?
When is your, do you guys want to do night meetings for the properties committee or I'm here all day if you want to?
I can do anything.
Like 3 o'clock or something in the afternoon? We can come up with a date, and maybe we can come up with a flow chart.
Okay.
Now, should the department head be part of that?
Chiefs.
I mean, I don't know, but we can start with the 3 of us, we can then do what I'm looking for at one time.
Very good, very good. So let's schedule that and get that done.
And then are you done, Jerry? I had a question, Danielle, on the third bullet point about the public entity school.
Yeah.
Where you and, it looked like you and the chief would do that, I have no problem with that, but, does changes of vehicles also include the street department equipment? Is that part of it or not?
Yeah, I usually, I'll do them, and if I'm not here, the chief does them. Usually they're the ones with changes, because most of the changes are just when you sell a vehicle. When you get a new vehicle, you gotta change them out on the insurance.
Okay, so it's not a decision of, you can still come in front of us and say, I need this, or.
Well, they don't have to come to you, when you guys agree to buy a new vehicle, the day they get changed out, we have to take the old car off, put the new car on. So if I'm here, I do it, if I'm not here, the chief usually does it.
So it's paperwork, wasn't it?
It's just paperwork.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I have a list of things. So first of all, for the Job Growth Partnership, there's a meeting on May 17th, their annual meeting, and I have the mayor and 2 council members are going. I just want to know if anybody else is planning on going to that meeting, because it's a credit card. I would get a credit card, and I prefer to only do that once. So,
Ruth, you're not going, correct?
I wasn't gonna go.
This is Jerry.
it's 7:30 a.m. till 9:30. So if you want to email this out to everybody tomorrow, you can let me know the next day or so, so I can just do one charge. The other thing is too, the Geauga Township Association, I have a membership, and the mayor has membership, and I think Ruth asked about
I
a
want
lot.
a membership.
So if anybody else wants a membership, if you can let me know, like,
I'd like to, I've been to a couple of the meetings, it's useful.
Danielle, could we do something as a group instead of, I don't, I didn't know, and because we're all associates, they won't give us like a Southwest rate.
No, I don't think so. I think you just pay by per number, per communities pay for each trustee, so.
Not per municipality. When you need to know that?
How about Wednesday on both of them? I'll send them out tomorrow, and you guys will know by Wednesday. So I found that the mayor attended in person, I attended, through webinar for this ESIG meeting put on by the county auditor last week, and that was talking about the ESIGs that the county's trying to put together. It was decided in that meeting that, county auditor is gonna go to the, county commissioners, hopefully on May 24th is their plan, to get the ESID in place for the county. He has to get permission from the commissioners. His goal is to get this in place so people do these projects through this ESID rather than doing separate bonds in the way of, he explained he would have people in his office that just deal with the special improvement districts, so that would hopefully cut down on the administrative costs. And Donald Hopkins was there and said that they would try to come up with a formula, so when someone would come forward with a project, they would kind of have a formula that would say, if your project was going to be $100,000, you should expect this much in administrative costs, so that they would know those things up front. So that was the auditor's plan on putting the ESID together. I talked to him after the meeting. He was surprised that the village was going to go with a bond on our own for Parkland. He was hoping to get this ESID in place, so we would do it that way, just so his office would be handling all of it and make sure the I's were dotted, T's were crossed. So I told him we already had this started, but we're not that far into it. So I don't know what you want to do, and I don't know if the commissioners will approve it in May, but just to let you know, that's what that meeting was about. He's going to send you the link of the recording, and I'll forward it to all the council. It's a pretty good meeting, and they went through it in more detail than the other ones. I thought it was worth listening to.
Chris Berger had some good questions about the ESIDs, if it's a pool effect. And I'm trying to remember what your exact question was. Do we get stuck paying for some of that?
We only pay for what we participate in.
Okay.
And we don't.
It's.
Yeah, but I mean, the fees are only charged on projects that we are part of.
So if we went forward with this, we wouldn't have to use bond counsel?
No.
No, that would be done by the ESID. Right.
Okay.
I do wonder, these are, a board is created, right?
Right.
From all the member communities.
Correct.
Is that board answered to anyone,
I don't know.
like the commissioners or something?
I don't know. I mean, those would be questions for the auditor that I can ask. I don't know the details on that. I can forward you the link. You can watch the
Yeah, I'll watch the
questions.
link, Daniel, and maybe the answer's in there somewhere.
It was a heated auditor, but it's that changes hands. Is that going to go forward?
I think if it's put in place and Cambridge is ready, so, they thought they had Cambridge, maybe probably less. So, I don't know.
Don't forget, it's only primary, so the current auditor will be in office until the end of the year. So,
But you can certify it and the more people.
Yeah, I think probably the auditor was too, because I think this is a good thing, especially in our village, right? We have a lot of water problems, this could be a good solution, which keep the village kind of out of it on our own. They would go to the county, that board, they're not a partisan board, they're just listening to what they need, and then they go to them and they handle everything. There would be staff in the auditor's office that would be designated to handle this type of thing, because you're gonna get audited on all these things, all these projects. So, I was hoping it would go through, we'll see what the.
So it's a time saving as well.
It's hard, I mean, yeah, because now when this all happens, if we do it with the bond, like how we're set up now, these people, it will go on their tax assessment, so there's a whole process where I would have to go to the county auditor to get these put on their tax assessments. Then county would collect their money under the, once a year, hopefully maybe twice a year. They would send me the money with our real estate tax collections, that I have to pay their loan for them. So I'm acting as the middleman for the loan, went to the county, their board, would decide on the projects, they would do well, everything with bond council, they would have people designated to it, and then they would pay, you know what I mean? So, we cut out work, we need, but, it's just another avenue to think about. And then I did want to, thank the county auditor and prosecutor for, giving us samples of the legislation they put together for the ARPA money. So as you know, we have a project over here next to Village Hall that's gonna use up our ARPA money plus some, but the reporting is gonna be lengthy, and they found out there's a way you could do, the revenue loss. And I did training last week through the state. They also recommended anybody that's getting under $10 million to claim the revenue loss. The reporting's easier, and, so that's the legislation we have for you. We got it from the county, and the solicitor went through it and revised it for the village because it's somewhat different. And then we also got a sample of procurement policy, which is required by the ARPA funds. And that the solicitor also went through and revised that for the village. So that was a lot of work last week, so I thank the solicitor.
And that all has to be done by April 30th.
It has to be done tonight, because I have to do the reporting before the end of the week, so I want to do it tomorrow. And then, lastly, I just wanted to call your attention to the flowers in the back of the Capitol Down dropped those off last week from Caxton Garden Club to the village. And that's all I have.
This, so Kathy O'Donnell left, it's supposed to be some sort of wisdom device. Here when you were here?
Roger kind of that.
Really?
Yeah, he was actually left council, he facilitated a strategic planning session at the beginning, and it was awesome.
Danielle, one question, I was waiting for the mayor to say questions of the fiscal officer, but I do have a question. Since you have a motion teed up for the finance committee on public entities, full proxy representation and alternative, would you educate council on that?
That's what Ruth was asking about was, so right now, the chief, I make the changes to the insurance when we get new vehicles or get rid of something, and then the chief is my backup. That's how we handle it now, that's how they gave us that proxy, so the solicitor felt we should get it on the record, that that's how council wants to.
And the representative is who? And the alternate is?
Questions of our fiscal officer? Hearing none, we're fiscal.
So what is the name of our village?
Official legal name of the village, and I would really prefer if everybody just kept this in your mind, to just keep doing this, because it's Village of South Russell, and this sticks in my head, because years ago, we had a tax case, an income tax case, and the person's whole, complaint was that we went by South Russell Village, not Village of South Russell, so since then, that's ingrained in my head. So when I went for the ARPA money, when I went to register for a page number, I put in Village of South Russell, but whoever registered it years ago, it was South Russell Village, and this has caused a problem that we're trying to fix. So it's Village of South Russell.
I understand that, with the new name, Guardians, this broadcasters have a deal where if they slip and say, they gotta put so much money in a plot, so perhaps we can do the same.
Well, given the fact that the logo on your report says South Russell Village,
Oh, it does? Okay, that's not,
maybe
that's the one.
maybe that's a place to start.
And our village park is the South Russell Park, and our village cemetery is the South Russell Cemetery. So,
But that doesn't make those incorrect, does it?
Legal standpoint.
You know, why don't they say DBA Township of Albany?
There we go.
I know.
Other township,
Done.
Russell Township.
Okay, Adam, can you top that?
I was actually just checking to see what I put in my report.
That's on me.
Like,
So,
Village of South Russell is on my report, just so you know.
You're an old.
And the report that I issued for the month ended March 31st, 2022, I shared with you last meeting. So if there's any questions besides the source of the magic mystery ball up on your desks, Happy to answer them, if not, I have no more.
Questions of the fiscal auditor? Finance committee.
Finance Committee would like to introduce a motion to approve the public entities pool proxy representation and alternative in the case of Danielle Romanowski being the proxy and the alternative being Chief Michael Rizzi.
We have a second. Moved and second discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
No further.
Questions of the fiscal, of the finance committee? Solicitor, you're up.
I have nothing to report.
Questions over solicitor?
Yes, if I may, in our package, you gave us a proposed ordinance for amending the village hall usage. And I looked it over with your comments, so did you, I believe. And we agreed with your recommendation, so what's next?
Okay, so what, is that the recommendation then of the HR committee? Or-
Didn't we have to,
Progress.
it looked like the last one, we needed to have a little more time. Because you said that it includes council, but we weren't part of the beginning part.
Correct, so, and again, I'm happy to come to a properties committee if we want to talk about that, or if we want to talk about it now. with council.
All I wanna know is how do we write it?
Well, and again, this was, I think, what was recommended, right, taken from the mayor's report. So we can go through any time.
That you made that you made some improvements.
No, I didn't, actually, I just recommended changes. I did not actually make any, I literally took what was, okay.
Correct.
It's not quite ready to go, Jared, that
Correct.
last one needs to be done.
Okay,
I think a couple of things need to be talked about.
so this should be discussed in property.
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to come to a meeting if you'd like,
Okay.
or if you want.
I'm going to announce it.
Okay, sure.
Any other questions of the solicitor?
Yes, Brian, you talked about the maintenance ordinance, and it allows the village to do various things for water or other things coming from outside the village into the village and affecting the village. So if there was runoff coming from an agricultural place in, I don't know, let's say Newberry, or possibly Bainbridge, the village could use that potentially as a means for redress. But that,
Possibly there are agricultural exemptions and exceptions to the abatement process because it's not necessarily considered a public nuisance. There's a big lobbying group with agriculture in the state of Ohio, so we have pretty hard.
is the burden on the source to prove their agriculture?
Probably, but at the same time, I mean, there is, in our codified ordinances, there's a procedure where the zoning inspector can go and investigate exactly what's going on. It does not have to be a formal complaint, it can be sui sponte on your own.
So we need a zoning inspector to start this off.
Yeah,
Excellent, we're on the track, okay? I'll read it over.
Any other questions of the solicitor? Street committee, these are really public utility stuff that, council, the board is gonna knock them off now.
As far as the street committee is concerned, we have our next meeting coming up, and my recollection is that it is May 6th, as I recall. Is that right, Chris?
We're next Friday.
This coming Friday.
May 6th.
Week from Friday, okay. May 6th, then it is. And, family lifestyle, the mayor addressed, if the ordinance Brian described allows us to pursue that route, I think we probably will, but we'll really talk about it at our next meeting, along with the engineer. And as far as the central retention basin is concerned, that came up both with streets and public utilities. The public utilities, meeting minutes are related packages. And it addresses that very question. It's out for bid next week, meaning this week. And that we're supposed to have the bid opening for the central retention basin May 13th. And the engineer would like to see, if possible, the same contractor handling the 319 grant area, as well as the central retention. Might be some savings and economies of scale if one bidder does that, but we won't know that until the bid openings occur. So we'll see what happens there. But, it's moving along, and we'd like to keep the, completion date end of July, early August, so I think that might slip. But, my goal is to get it done sooner rather than later. And I think, both Councilman Berger and Bell share that desire. And other than that, Mayor, subject to any comments that Councilman Bell may have?
Mark, I don't know if you saw very late this afternoon, you received an email from the engineer regarding Washington Street.
Yeah, what do we know about that? Well, the county did include our portion, the Village of South Russell's portion of East Washington Street in its federal notification. So the county is looking to us to do the job by ourselves. And at first blush, I don't know that I'm interested in that at this point.
They want you to what?
The county left us out, left that section
Of
of
the
Washington.
annexation
So
part. Yeah,
we don't need to rebid and also probably add about $5,000 to the cost.
I thought that we already covered this and they jacked it up by 10 grand.
The
Well-
first bid came in over the engineer's estimate by too high of a percent, so they had to rebid. We were in the original, I guess, when they rebid, they forgot to put.
I wonder if we were in the original, because the bid came in really high, and the county had to reject it because of the 10% rule. So to my mind, I wonder if we were in that original bid to begin with, because now, evidently, the second bid offered, we were not.
Well, that's not your guys' job, that's the county's.
Well, I agree, but the question becomes, do we want to allow the county to pave Washington Street except for our section? And quite frankly, folks, the answer may be yes. We would like the county to just pave it away, and we'll get to it when we get to it. Because if we're paying for it, do we need to do it this year? I do not know, but I want to get the views of the engineer and the street commissioner on the topic before we do anything dramatic.
Has the committee gone to the county to say, is this a omission or, you know?
Clearly, it's an omission.
Well,
County engineer called for Eric's phone number, then he able to let Eric say, the village could look to bid it on our own, but it's gonna cost an additional $5,000. At least for a standalone project, but we can still use our
I mean, if it was done in error, it seems like the county ought to address
It's
the error.
county falls in their court.
Well, they put out a bid, and they're waiting for responses. It is at least theoretically possible that the responses are more than 10% of the engineer's estimate, so they wind up rejecting it
Slice it
again. And then I would look to have the county include that section of Washington Street, which was basically from St. John's to, where's the?
Katie Park. We have a part of the park.
It goes to the main.
So Danielle, did you say that the county approached Eric?
The county engineer's office called today and asked me for Eric's number. So I gave him, but he didn't tell me why he was calling, but obviously that was a time today when this email from Eric came at 4:38.
But as far as you know, nobody from the village of South Russell has gone to the county engineer to say, you guys made a mistake.
We have not, because Eric's email is coming out about 4:45 this afternoon. So we're kind of hoping the mayor will call the county and yell at them.
Okay, now, I have a,
Either way, we'll talk about it, streets committee, and we'll come up with an answer.
we'll try to get some information. A question, if we do have to go out to do this on our own, we really didn't want to expend our
Permissive tax.
permissive tax money. So this may be a way for us to pay down our big balance, which makes the county tax commission happy. And then we could save that permissive tax funds for another event, but the process has already been done.
Eric's already filled out the paperwork, which is, so that's amazing that the county forgot it, because gotta work for it, so I don't know if we can,
Somebody who,
you know,
yeah.
All right, I will, I'll send you an email sometime this week once I hear what's going on.
Yes. Well, one thing I note, Mayor, is that permissive tax funds, I recall, is only for connecting streets.
Yeah.
So that's Snyder, Daisy,
Daisy, Bell, and
Bell,
Washington.
And it's
All
on
of them.
East Washington. There's that little one on the other side. So,
Anyhow, we could possibly pay down our balance a little bit more, but we'll get something out to you this week once I know.
although we have a massive road program going on this year, $675,000,
Plus,
which
yeah,
plus, which council members may recall is about 300 grand more than we normally spend. Although of late, we've been paving roads as much as we can, and the county may note this as a big, when we go to the budget process again.
Okay, anything else in the street committee? Any questions out there?
I think we're done with Saltfield here.
Yeah. All right, building committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Building Committee will meet Thursday, May the 5th at 8 a.m. at the Building Department. Now, under Building Committee, there are 2 bullets: forfeiture, track, and deposits, zoning code changes, deposit, and fees. The solicitor last council meeting was kind enough to shed some light on those 2 subjects. And are there any questions?
I do want to make a comment. Forfeitures, we thought we had a possibly $250 million situation. What we were able to do is over the winter, when things slowed down, Bruce started purging files. She got through Road Street from A to M, and now she's probably going to get at that until January again next year. But what we found is many of the deposits we thought had not been issued, had been issued. So she's going through manually checking this out, and then when our web system is up and working, we'll also run a test there. So we're going to have a cross-checking as to what was done with these deposits. I can tell you, she did say she's done 18 forfeitures, deposits, and there's some very happy people, because you get a letter from us saying your contractor charged you $2,500, whatever, and you never collected the deposit. So letters went out to all the contractors that we have found and all the homeowners, and there's been some very happy people knowing money's coming their way. Some of them, is that they never got like final inspections, or some of the contractors didn't fulfill their issues. But that has been, that has worked out very well, and we can get on it again as soon as we can.
Councilman Bell, is there anything?
I'm sorry. Chief, you're up, even though you're not supposed to be here, you're here.
I have no report.
You came to give no report.
Came to get no
So
report.
we're in an officer, you missed dinner, Ruth, you're gonna have to start bringing them, pardon me, not to pick on the group, but he did not have dinner. All right. Safety committee.
Safety Committee, Joint HR Safety Committee met on 14 April to discuss the hiring of full and part-time officers. And additionally, we have no further information on fire department donation beyond what was already discussed during the this financial committee report. And the next meeting of the Safety Committee will take place on 5th of May.
Questions of the safety committee? HR committee.
HR committee has no report, and we will have to reschedule our next meeting prior to my meeting. So we will take care of that and report back.
Questions of the HR committee? Property committee, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. There will be a special property meeting on April 27th at 7 p.m. And we will be discussing the possibilities of developing soccer fields at the East Washington side of our park. And that is going to be Zoom. And we ask, as the mayor suggested earlier, that it be sunshine.
And that's a park committee meeting or properties committee
That's going to be a properties meeting, but also inviting the parks.
What's the joint property?
If they're coming at 7, Jerry, should we schedule earlier for these other 2 issues we're gonna talk about?
That's going to be,
We do it at the same time, like 6:30.
well,
Or you can have 2 separate meetings.
it's going to be Zoom, remember, and I don't know how the park committee will handle that. They're welcome to be a part. You're talking about the NFL schedule?
No, I'm talking about finishing what Bridie had with the village hall use.
Oh, I
and
see.
the park bench.
We may do that on the 15th.
Okay.
Okay. Perhaps. Thank you for bringing it up. The NFL schedule becomes public on May 12th at 8 p.m. sharp. Therefore, we'll be waiting for that. And I'm going to call for the consensus of park committee to meet on May 15th. I believe that's a Monday. And not only to discuss a date for the festival and a backup date, but also the questions we have concerning benches.
May 15th is a Sunday. Yes.
16.
Then the 16th, there'll be the 16th then, there'll be 16th.
And so your meeting, the meeting for the 27th is a Zoom meeting
That's a Zoom.
of joint parks and property at 7 p.m.
Right. And then the NFL schedule comes out on the 12th, but we're not gonna meet to discuss that and the benches until May 16th.
We will also be discussing the village hall use policy or not.
We will do that on the 16th.
Okay, so that would be another special. Yeah, discussion.
Good idea.
Well, the special meeting is going to be on the 27th, Zoom, so there's two
Oh,
special
is your
meetings.
May 16th is a regular meeting?
Regular meeting, right?
Yeah.
Regular meeting.
Oh, okay. You have it every.
Whenever we do one.
Well, no. Sorry, that's not actually though how it works. So if you haven't set a regular schedule for your committee meetings at the beginning of the year, then every meeting is
Then
regular.
there will be a special meeting.
And so I need a detailed agenda. If it's a special meeting, I need a list of everything you're gonna talk about.
Okay, on the 16th,
Yeah.
that will be the NFL schedule, that will be picking a date for the festival and a backup date. And also we'll be discussing benches.
Leave yourself some
Your
wiggle room,
village
because
hall
somebody
use
else
policy.
we probably stuff with more
Wow.
things. So the tentative. You need to know what on Friday the 13th,
Friday the 13th.
with the final,
Okay.
the final agenda.
Ruth, anything to add?
No, that covers it.
All right, here's the Public Utilities Committee.
As the package indicated, public utilities met the April 22nd, the minutes are in your packets. And of note, for special improvement districts, we were hoping to be able to come to some kind of agreement as to a recommendation to council about whether a special improvement district should be pursued or not. After the meeting, we confess we don't know enough to make that recommendation one way or the other, so it requires some further study. Chris, if you're available on May 20th. The other Chris. Well,
I'm not.
okay.
But
Well, how about the following?
Grab another day.
How about the following?
No.
He's gone.
Don't really-
May 10th through June 3rd. I haven't been on
May
it.
10th and June 3rd.
We're having a party at his house.
Really? Yeah. you can do third. Why don't we do it at like 6:30 on May 9th before the council meeting?
That's fine.
Okay. So a special public utilities meeting, Danielle, May 9th, and I'll send you an agenda.
Okay. That's 6:30.
Yep.
6:30.
Yes, and we'll continue the discussion about park fund. And where we go from here. Subject to any comments that Chris Berger would have, that concludes my report.
None.
All right, Chris, you got the first ordinance, second reading.
Okay, second reading of an ordinance repealing ordinance 2022-17 and adopting pay schedules in the tiered system for the Village of South Russell employees and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Okay, you got the next two, HR committee.
Second reading of a resolution of appreciation for David Maestros. Second reading of a resolution of appreciation for Laura LaChapelle.
You can,
Introduce a resolution of appreciation for Gregory Pike.
Okay, Dennis.
you want me to do
Not me.
sort of
Oh,
public utilities?
that's right.
Sure. Public lands.
But it's your.
Sure. The resolution author, I'd like to introduce the resolution authorizing the increase. Whoops. Yeah, but I want to read. Yeah, there it is. Got it now. Okay. Introduce an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to approve updated agreement with Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, otherwise known as NOPEC. It's 2022 Energized Community Grant Funds, declaring an emergency, move to waive further readings.
We have a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Okay. Ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider adoption of an ordinance amending the annual appropriations, increasing NatureWorks playground expenses $4,031, declaring an emergency, waiving further readings, so moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Ordinance passed.
I'd like to introduce and consider for adoption a resolution adopting the standard allowance provision and its presumption of revenue loss due to the public health emergency, to use the amount authorized to fund government services, declaring an emergency, and waiving further reading. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
I'd like to introduce and consider for,
Wait, the resolution passed. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Sorry about that, Stefan. Introduce and consider for adoption a resolution authorizing the increase in the micro purchase threshold, adopting the uniform guidance procurement policy for the expenditure of ARPA funds, declaring an emergency, and waiving further reading. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Berger.
Aye.
Stanton.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Maliki.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Bell.
Resolution passed. We're at the bills list, Dennis.
I'd like to make a motion to ratify the bills list of 14 April 2022 in the amount of $24,106.32. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passed. Yes, we're gonna,
Berger.
Okay. I was reading the rules of council, I guess, and I found in it that I'm supposed to ask permission to potentially miss a council meeting. And that council has to approve it. So I'm asking council approval that I potentially may miss the meeting of, May 23rd.
How does that turn? Is it we have to ask?
It's in there, it's in the council rules.
Really?
If we say no,
You know, I don't know, I mean, it's thumb screws or whatever.
Or quick, our kids come back from here.
we have a motion to Somebody, HR, if you wanna do that, you get, let Chris go.
I move, so is it specific? I move that Chris Berger is allowed to take his, during vacation.
Been moved, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Captain Newler.
Nothing.
Kavanaugh.
No.
Lickey.
None.
Porter.
No.
Bell.
Well, in the spirit of Chris Berger, I may have to miss the July 11th meeting. Not for my dream vacation. So I guess, unless my schedule changes, the original for council to miss the July 11th. Oh, you go yourself.
Wanna do that, do move?
I move that we allow Chris Bell to miss the July 11th meeting if necessary.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're good, Chris.
Now, if I may, when you two come back, you have to have a written note from your wives.
So that's everybody.
All right, Councilman Woolitty, pardon me, Councilman, 8:30, I lost. Councilman Campbell.
Yes, I move to enter into executive session for the purposes of considering the purchase of property for public purposes under section 121.22 G2 of the Ohio Revised Code, and for the purpose of conference with the solicitor regarding pending or imminent litigation under section 121.22 G3 of the Ohio Revised Code, and invite into executive session the mayor, fiscal officer, and assistant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, roll call, please.
Berger.
Aye.
Captain.
Aye.
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Lickey.
Aye.
Porter. Bell.
We're in executive session, how about 8:31, just everybody 3 minutes.